For many people, few things bring back memories of fear and shame as quickly as the sound of a belt being pulled through belt loops. In countless homes and schools, belting was once considered a normal way to punish bad behavior. A simple leather belt could turn into a tool of pain, humiliation, and control. Though some adults claimed it was necessary for discipline, others saw it as an act that left lasting scars on both the body and the mind. What is belting punishment? Belting is a form of corporal punishment that involves striking a person with a belt, usually made of thick, strong leather. The belt itself could be an everyday object, a father's own trouser belt, or a special belt kept solely for discipline. Because it was always within reach, belting became one of the most common punishments in many households. The belt could be used in different ways. Doubled over, it landed with a heavy slap that spread the force and raised painful welts. When swung at full length, the tip could snap unpredictably, leaving red lines that burned for hours. The harshest method was using the buckle end, which could tear the skin or cause deep bruises. Unlike canes or paddles, which had to be fetched or stored, the belt required no preparation. It was always there, looped through belt loops or hanging on a hook by the door. Parents could unbuckle it in seconds, and the sound alone often terrified children into obedience. The whipping was typically given on the buttocks, but in anger, some adults struck the back, legs, or even the hands. This convenience and immediacy made belting a punishment both feared and difficult to escape, a tool that turned ordinary discipline into an unforgettable ordeal. Where did belting originate? The practice of hitting with a belt goes back centuries and appears in many cultures. In Russia and parts of Eastern Europe, belting was seen as a standard part of raising children. In the United States and Britain, it was also common in the home and sometimes in schools. During the 19th and 20th centuries, some teachers kept a separate belt in their desk or hung it on the wall as a visible warning. In Scotland, the word "the belt" often referred not just to an ordinary belt, but to any strap used for punishment, including the tawse. The idea was that a belt was both familiar and effective, a symbol of authority that children were expected to respect. How was belting carried out? Belting usually followed a set ritual. At home, the parent, often the father, would remove their belt while explaining why the punishment was about to happen. The child might be ordered to bend over a bed, a chair, or the adult's knee. Some parents preferred the child to lie flat on a sofa or bed to prevent movement. The belt was then applied to the buttocks, sometimes on top of clothing but often on bare skin. In schools, the process was similar. The teacher or headmaster would have the student stretch out their hand or bend over a desk. While the hand was sometimes struck, the buttocks were more common. In some households and cultures, it was considered proper discipline as long as the belt did not strike other parts of the body. However, in moments of anger, some punishers lashed out unpredictably, leading to injuries on the back, thighs, or even genitals, acts condemned even where belting was accepted. Why was belting considered effective? Supporters of belting argued that it was quick, memorable, and required no special tools. The belt was already part of everyday life, so using it to discipline felt normal to many parents and teachers. They believed that the sharp pain taught respect and obedience. Because the marks faded after a few days, belting was seen as less severe than other punishments like caning or whipping. Some adults also thought the ritual itself, unbuckling the belt, explaining the rules, delivering the punishment, reinforced authority and made the lesson clear. But critics pointed out that fear-based discipline often taught children to obey out of terror rather than understanding. How did belting affect children? The effects of belting could be both physical and emotional. Physically, a belt strike could cause red welts, bruising, or in harsher cases, broken skin. A child might find it painful to sit or walk for days. Emotionally, the punishment often created feelings of shame, resentment, and anxiety. For many, the memory of being belted did not fade quickly. Studies have shown that children who experience corporal punishment are more likely to develop aggression, depression, and difficulty trusting authority figures later in life. Even when parents believed they were acting out of love, the experience could damage relationships permanently. How was belting used in schools? In some schools, belting became part of official discipline policies. Teachers kept a designated belt for punishing rule breaking, and it was sometimes displayed prominently as a warning. In Scotland, the tawse, a thick leather strap split into tails, was commonly called the belt and was applied to the palms of students' hands. In other countries, including the United States, belts were sometimes used instead of canes or paddles, especially in rural areas where resources were limited. However, by the late 20th century, attitudes began to change. Parents and educators increasingly argued that belting was abusive rather than corrective. Laws banning corporal punishment gradually spread, and the belt disappeared from most classrooms. When did belting start to decline? Belting began to decline in the second half of the 20th century. As research grew about the negative effects of corporal punishment, psychologists and child welfare advocates called for reforms. Countries across Europe passed laws banning corporal punishment in schools. In many places, public opinion shifted faster than legislation. What was once a sign of good discipline came to be viewed as a sign of cruelty. In Russia and other parts of the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, belting remained common longer, but it too has declined in recent decades. Today, while some families still use belts for discipline, most child development experts strongly discourage the practice. Is belting still used today? Although much less common, belting has not disappeared entirely. In some cultures and families, it remains an accepted, though controversial, form of punishment. However, in most Western countries, belting is now recognized as a form of physical abuse, especially if it leaves injuries. Laws in many regions protect children from corporal punishment, not only in schools but also at home. International organizations, including the United Nations, have called for a total ban on all corporal punishment. As society moves toward non-violent discipline, belting is increasingly seen as part of an outdated approach to parenting. What can we learn from the history of belting? Belting shows how ideas about discipline can change over time. For generations, people believed it was a necessary tool for teaching respect. Now, research has shown that it often does more harm than good. Studying the history of belting helps us understand why fear and pain are not effective ways to guide children. Instead, many modern parents and educators focus on communication, empathy, and positive reinforcement. Recognizing how common belting once was and how quickly attitudes changed reminds us that discipline can evolve toward more compassionate methods. The belt was a symbol of authority, but also a symbol of fear. Today, as more countries reject corporal punishment, the memories of belting remain as reminders of how discipline can cross the line into harm. What do you think about belting as a form of punishment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to learn more about punishment worldwide and throughout the ages, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.